Hello, welcome to Seva Food Bank. We are making chili today, and my assistant.
Hi, I'm Seva and I'm a volunteer here at Seva. And yes, we're making chili, the most versatile vegetarian or non-vegetarian chili. So let's get started.
I love the vegetarian one. And
So
you
do
can
I.
do so many things with it, you know?
Absolutely.
So what do you want me to do while you are,
You know what? We're gonna need some onions chopped up and some peppers chopped up as well in a small square.
Okay.
If we can.
Yeah, well.
So we're gonna get started with, we're gonna do a vegetarian version of this chili today, but it's actually one of the most versatile recipes I've made of chili, because you can in fact add in 2 pounds of turkey if you prefer to have, or ground beef if you prefer to have meat in this recipe. But today we're gonna be making it with a mixture of beans, and we're actually gonna add in some quinoa today for extra protein, extra fiber, and it just gives it a little more of a hearty texture. So I am going to get started with a little bit of oil in my pan. And I'm using a shallow pan today so you can see everything that I'm doing, but ultimately make it in a big pan so you can get a big vat of chili ready for your family. You can have leftovers, you can have a big crowd over, because you will get a lot out of this recipe. And it also freezes great. So if you want to have it next week or the week after, you can portion freeze it.
I cut the onions.
Oh, perfect.
And
So
those are very small onions, so they're very potent. So that's why I'm crying right now.
No, don't cry, Chef.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
happy
so
day.
So
Thank
when this
you.
one is a little bit hotter,
Yes.
I'm gonna put it in there.
Break it up a little bit. You're gonna want about one good-sized onion. We'll give that a little zhuzh. And like I said, this is such a versatile recipe. We're putting in green peppers, red peppers, and yellow peppers because that's what we had today. If you don't have yellow and red peppers, just use green. If you don't have green, just use the others.
Can you use cans too? Like for instance, there's peppers out there and there's different vegetables.
This is such a forgiving recipe. Honestly, if something in the can is what you've got, then absolutely use it.
Because
it just adds to the flavor. And you know what? Fresh produce isn't always available.
No.
So.
But the only thing is when you use the canned vegetable, make sure you get all the juices off because it's full of sodium and sugar in there.
You don't need that extra salt.
And the reason why to do it is to keep it for a long shelf life.
Right. So, well, you know what? I was actually thinking about that with the beans. We're going to be using canned beans today, but if you had dried beans, which are going to last a lot longer in your pantry, we could use dried beans. You can soak them overnight, and then the only additional step would be you'd have to boil them before you put them in your chili. Boil until they're tender. I mean, that's healthy. It's always on hand. It's so easy. So right now, I'm actually going to go ahead and add the peppers as well.
You want me to put those ones in
first?
first?
Just get them in there, and then I'll throw them in. I like to cook. This is essentially a dump and go recipe. So, if you were going to be using turkey or ground beef, you would put it in before your onions, and you would just brown them a little bit, and then you would add your onions, and then you would add your peppers. We're using pinto beans, black beans, and kidney beans, but honestly, any type of bean is going to be great in this. And as we discussed, you could also use dried beans. But something we were talking about earlier that I didn't actually know in so much detail, how are the beans actually prepared that are in the cans?
Well, they get soaked first.
Right.
And then they put them in cans, so in mass production.
Okay.
And then they go through the conveyor belt into a cooking process.
So they're actually
They're
cooking
cooked
that
in
we're doing on
the
the stove.
cans.
They're doing it in the
they're
cans.
cooked in the cans. That's why usually any food like vegetables are a little bit overcooked, so you don't need to cook them anymore.
That makes sense.
And they're making it much better these days.
So we have drained beans, drained corn, ready to go in.
Look
here.
at the color.
The colors are beautiful. I wish we had smell-o-vision because it smells so yummy.
Yeah. I see with your jalapenos what you prepared already. You took out the seeds.
Yes.
You can leave the seeds inside if you wanted to have it a little bit more spicy.
A little more of a
The
kick.
seeds are the only thing what makes jalapenos hot and spicy.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm not going to cook this too much. Our beans are already cooked, as we talked about in the cans. Our peppers and onions, they're cooked enough. We're going to go ahead and add our diced tomatoes. If you don't have diced tomatoes, today we're using canned vegetables for the most part. And it's really what you're going to find in your hamper if you come through Seva Food Bank. And they're not always the right tomatoes. And that's okay, because you can use, if you got whole tomatoes, you can dice them yourself. If you only have fresh tomatoes, you can add those in. So it's really a very forgiving and very versatile recipe. So today I do have diced tomatoes, so that's what I'm going to be using.
Can you use crushed tomatoes too?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so crushed tomatoes.
If I used crushed
tomatoes,
tomatoes,
yeah.
I might even slice up a little bit of a fresh tomato just for some texture.
Yeah.
Just to have a little bit of chunkiness. There is a little bit of liquid that comes in with the tomatoes, but it's not always enough. I like to add some vegetable broth, but I don't always have vegetable broth on hand at home. So
well, we made our
I like
own.
to make my own, and it's so easy.
So tell us what you put in there.
All right, so we've essentially got some celery tops, we've got some carrots, and we've got some onions, and I've thrown in some garlic.
And you see, the
some
onions are not
parsley.
even peeled.
So I didn't.
So you washed them really good.
Yeah, I actually took out the outer layer, but left on some brown because there's so much flavor in those outer layers. So I was mindful to wash them thoroughly.
Yeah.
Today we are using chili powder, and this is not spicy per se, but it's often used in a lot of Mexican-inspired dishes. It's a combination of dried chili peppers that are not spicy, some ground oregano that's dried. So if you didn't have this mixture, you could add some taco seasoning.
Yeah, you make your own.
Or just take the dried spices that you have at home and mix them together and throw them in.
I always put a little bit of the allspice in too.
Oh yes, you know what? I believe that chili powder does have a little bit of allspice and probably a dash of nutmeg as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, today we're going to be using some
doing
quinoa.
a class today.
Yeah. You know, you can really add anything to this. And you don't have to cook the quinoa ahead of time. That's the handy part. You can just sprinkle it in. And I would say for the recipe that we have posted, I would add a cup of quinoa. Just as you've got everything else in there before it starts to really sit and boil. As well as my chili powder, I like to add cumin powder. And that'll be listed in the recipe as well. And like I said, if you didn't have these combination powders, you could have added taco seasoning too, because that has all of the components. And so at this point, you can taste it, you can adjust it if you like a little more cumin, if you like a little more salt. This is the right time. I wouldn't add too much at this point because we have to give the flavors a chance to marry as it boils for a little bit. I love fresh cilantro on my chili. I also can't do it without corn chips. I need corn chips, and they're not. If you don't have corn chips, you can absolutely put tortilla chips on.
You can also use a little bit lime juice if you want.
That would be
and,
amazing.
Sour cream.
Yep.
Wow,
Some
looks amazing.
Jalapenos.
This is fantastic. So we actually could do some bread with it. If we have one,
chef, that's a great idea.
next time we're gonna do one
can do
session with just
quick
making
corn
bread.
bread.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can do a quick
Oh
corn
my
bread.
God.
There's a few ingredients,
Yes.
and it's stuff we often have in our pantries.
And
That
I
would
love
be
it.
awesome. I would put that cornbread right here, and it would be great to just wipe up the bottom of my bowl.
Thank you.
Awesome. Can't wait to try it. Thanks, chef.
Thank you. Thank you.